successful for you, or the time we spend together here on stage this evening will be truly relaxing and enjoyable for you, or whatever the context is. The only thing that changes is the context. The underlying psychology remains the same. Deciphered what you've said to them, but in a way where the audience don't perceive it this way. But what you've effectively said is, do what I tell you to do, you daft fucker. If you don't, you're thick, stupid, you've got no intelligence, no imagination, no concentration. You're a twat. And I'll send you back to the audience. Or you can leave here, still have your fucking problem, but you're not getting your money back. Fuck off. That's what you've effectively said, but in a far nicer, palatable manner. But that is what I would arguably say is processed at an unconscious level. But it sounds so nice and just so long as you use your powers of intelligence, imagination and concentration effectively, as I'm sure you will, then this will be 100% successful for you, or this will be the best experience of your life. You've now, in NLP they call it putting them in a bind, or in a position where if they now don't do stuff, especially when they volunteer to come to the front, for sure, or of their own volition they booked a therapy session and they paid a sizable chunk of money for it, if they don't do what's expected of them, you've now created a situation where they'll feel a bigger idiot for not doing it, generally speaking, than if they carry on and do go, or lift their arm up at the right time during the therapy session or whatever. It's easier for them to do it. Which all comes under that label, even though we have gone past the getting the rapport bit. Stage, therapy pre-talk, we've covered. Stage, there's various things that sadly we do have to cover legally. I'm not going to go into major depth. That in itself will be an entire flipping day's course just on the laws and health and safety, which is why all of you have been sent either via, if you've had it via email, great. If you haven't, I've got a slip to give you later with a web code on where you can download the backup materials that were mentioned. In there is exactly that, a complete one-day training on the health and safety and laws if you were to want to go into doing stage shows or group therapy sessions. Because obviously the considerations are somewhat different than just having one client in front of you. And I would say that before you go doing any form of shows, or even if you're a therapist if you do therapy, you'll encounter sooner or later, if you haven't already, somebody out and about, to find out what you do, and they've got that preconceived idea that you can sleep and make them do something, and they might say, oh, go on then, make me do something. Now, most therapists will shy away from that and go, oh no, it's very different than stage, and again they're losing their power straight away. If you can turn around and go, okay then, and you do something, and the people around them are like, what the flipping heck's just taken place? You're going to end up with more people asking for your cards, and the chances are you'll end up with more clients out of it than maybe just the one. But I know it's that fear that puts therapy stuff generally. What if it doesn't work? What if it doesn't work? Then I'm going to look daft. Well, yeah, you might not get a client if it didn't work, but you weren't going to get, the chances are you probably wouldn't have got the client anywhere unless you did something. But as you'll see very shortly, yes, I'm on track, as you will see very shortly, there are things you can do that are guaranteed to work 99.9% of the time. And the reason I say 99.9% of the time is because short of being a psychic, or short of taking bloody hours with each individual to ask them numerous questions to find out things that you don't need to find out, you just don't know. Some people, it might turn out, you start doing something and the person doesn't respond, and it turns out because at some point they closed their eyes and they're hard of hearing. So they actually didn't hear fully what you said. So it's not your fault. Equally, it's not really their fault. Although, by the same token, especially if it was therapy, you'd think it's the kind of thing they might mention as a client when they got there. Although you'd be surprised. I've had it before now, and I'm thinking, what? I've had to prod them. And they're like, what? I said, everything all right? Oh yeah, it's just that when my eyes have got a lip read, you see. Well, I wish I'd fucking known that at the beginning. So the unexpected will happen. And I'm telling you all the negatives now, so that then we can move on to positive stuff. Because the truth of the fact is, anyone who tells you there's something that works 100% of the time with 100% of the people, either A, has found out something that I've never fucking discovered, and never seen in any books or in any training, and should therefore be mega rich, or B, is just blatantly lying for the sake of trying to sell a course or a product that there is nothing that works 100% of the time. So, there are some things you do need to cover though in terms of group therapy session, which as much as I said before, it's just the same as doing it one-to-one, except that you've got loads of people, so instead of saying I'm just talking to you, you say I'm talking to everyone. Everyone now close your eyes. Everybody take a nice deep breath in and out. Just you're changing just the odd word, that's the only difference. There is some things you need to say at the beginning. So, I will pretend there's a big room full of people here now. I will pretend it's not this early hour, godforsaken morning on a Saturday. And I'll pretend that I'm actually dressed in my stage suit. And this is the kind of shit that I would say at the start of the show. Or, equally, ironically, at a group therapy session. It's just that one or two of these sentences I wouldn't say at a group therapy session. I'm pretty certain you're all intelligent enough to guess which ones those are as we go through it. It might be quite clear which of the ones I wouldn't mention, but it would effectively, you'd have been introduced, and even if it's a group therapy session, I would always advocate having a professional voiceover artist, which doesn't have to cost a lot of money. You've got sites like Fiverr.com and stuff, you know, alright, they'll probably charge you more like $10, but for very little money you can get a professional voiceover artist to record. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome, live on stage, you know, the internationally acclaimed hypnotherapist, Badoom. Yep. Rather than leaving it to somebody at, you know, at the venue or whatever to introduce you to go out, because they invariably say your name wrong, or you end up that Dave you dealt with wasn't there and Barry had to show up and his public speaking skills are dire to say the least, and he ends up going, "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen," and he's just killed the fucking atmosphere before you even walk on. It's about building them up, and you know, that's why when you go to like things like Anthony Robbins at the start, even before he comes on stage, you know, "Come on everyone, get clapping," and they're putting on the hypey music, and yeah, alright, clapping, and especially they encourage them to do it in the air, because when you raise your hands into the air like this, and there's a movement as well, it actually releases endorphins into the body, which is the body's natural painkiller, but it's also the body's feel-good factor. It releases more dopamine, which is why people get, you know, crazy at football matches when they're all, yeah! You could link it back to Hitler. That's why you got people, seriously, look at it, it might sound offensive, but part of getting them to do this is because they're then releasing bodily chemicals, brain chemicals, that make a person immediately more compliant. So that's, they're drugged up on their own natural opiates before Anthony Robbins comes up on stage, and you can do the same thing, you know, before your group therapy session, or have it recorded, so it sounds professional. It's all about creating an atmosphere where it looks like you are super good at what you do. It looks like you're super experienced at what you do. You've done it so many times that you're transmitting this confidence it will work. When the truth of the matter is, it might be the first time you've ever done a group therapy session. But you don't tell them that. Or it might be the first time you've done a show. You don't tell them that. It might be the first time you've done a therapy session, full stop. But you don't tell them that. Pure common sense. Who wants to be the first guinea pig for someone who's going to mess with their mind for therapy? Who wants to get up in front of a room of people when if the person was saying it was the first ever show? I mean, that kind of dissipates the level of protection that person's got, and I don't mean just health and safety, I mean that ability to be able to go back afterwards and say, "Ooh, that powerful experienced hypnotist made me do it." That's immediately dissipated if you admit that it's your first ever show. Same with a group therapy session. So, I'm not saying but on your website that you've done like 5,000 group therapy sessions, because that's blatant lying and fraud under the Advertising Standards Authority laws and stuff. But give the impression. You can buy stock art photos of audiences. So that picture goes on your group therapy page on your website, and people will assume, by implication, by association, that that is a photograph of one of your audiences. But I do advocate purchasing the rights to use the photo. I'm not talking from a copyright point of view here, although that is important. Because if you pay for the license for a stock photo, you can buy it for exclusive use. Now, it will cost you a bit more, but it might, you know, instead of it costing you a couple of dollars, it might cost you $50, $100. But it means nobody else will have that photo or get that photo. So if some curious bugger takes it and puts it in Google reverse image searches, it's not going to show up on anyone's website except yours. So people aren't going to be able to work out that it isn't one of your audiences. Maybe I'm overthinking things there, but I like to cover all bases. Because it's about creating an atmosphere, an environment where people believe you know what you're doing. So if you're doing therapy, I don't think it's not quite as important. In therapy, I don't go in wearing a suit that's like black one side and white the other, mad outfit, because it's not right for that context, that environment. But I do for a stage show. But what I would advocate is you should be dressed so that it's unlikely your therapy client or audience are likely to be dressed the same as you. So that you can be perceived as dressing better than them. And the only real way of doing that, because you don't know, your client might come through and they're a bloody multi-millionaire and they're wearing designer Prada or something, the only way of guaranteeing that you're dressed in a manner that's different is to actually go, and this applies to women as equally as men, go to a tailor and have something made to measure for yourself that is your work clothes, so to speak. Your hypnotic outfit, I'm going to cheesily refer to it as. Now obviously that's going to be a bit more serious and conventional for therapeutic purposes, unless you're going down the kind of new agey tree hugging route, then it might be flamboyant and flowery. It depends on the context of what you're marketing as well. There's got to be a consistency, or as NLP would call it, everything's got to be congruent all the way through. Otherwise it will cause a conflict in the mind of your therapy client or the volunteers. All making sense, yeah? Cool. So, at the beginning, whether it's group or stage, I would generally say something such as, thank you, good evening, and welcome to what's going to be, for most of you here this evening, I'm sure a truly interesting, informative and entertaining hour or so. Now, the reason I say most of you is because obviously many of you here tonight will be hypnotised, and for those of you who are hypnotised, it will be a truly relaxing, enjoyable, if somewhat slightly unusual experience. Now, although you'll hear me say the word sleep rather a lot tonight, none of you will actually ever be asleep. Or at least I hope you won't, because if you're hypnotised, you'll be fully aware of everything that's going on around you at all times. It's just you'll have this overwhelming desire to do almost anything and everything I say. Now, the reason I say almost anything I say is it is impossible, and that's true, though it fucking isn't, that's a lie to put them at ease. It is impossible to make anyone say or do anything that would totally contradict the morals or the values. So what I'm ideally looking for this evening to fill these chairs up here are about a dozen people with no morals and with no values, and I'm sure we can have a great show. Of course, if you are thinking about volunteering tonight, you may be wondering, what does it feel like to be hypnotised? Well, it's just, let me assure you, it's just a very relaxing experience, rather like having a joint of Moroccan black. And you normally gets a bigger laugh than that, but to be honest, normally it's a bigger audience, but hey, you work with what you've got. And in fact, a lot of women have said to me, Jonathan, because that's my name, they've said to me, Jonathan, when I was hypnotised, it felt better than any orgasm I've ever had. To which I usually say, well, obviously, you've never fucking slept with me then, have you? But anyway, that's an entirely different story. If you are thinking about volunteering this evening, what I'm going to be looking for are people with good powers of intelligence, imagination and concentration. If you've got good powers of intelligence, imagination and concentration, and you want to volunteer and come up here with the idea of letting yourself go, relaxing, giving it a try, and being one of the stars of this evening's show, then in a few moments' time, when the music begins, I'd like you to make your way up to the stage as rapidly but as safely as you possibly can. A few things I'm going to run past you by law in England. These don't apply elsewhere. That bit you don't tell them. Usually comes out. A few things I'm going to run past you by law is that we've got a few kids in tonight, and that's great. But unfortunately, the law says I'm not allowed to hypnotise anyone under the age of 18. So please do not volunteer if you're under the age of 18. If you're asthmatic, epileptic, clinically depressed or pregnant, please do not volunteer. It's got nothing to do with hypnosis. It's just if you're pregnant, I won't want you jumping around and falling on the floor or anything like that. And if you're not pregnant, see me after the show and I'm sure we can fucking sort that one out. But anyway, seriously, we are just looking for people with good powers of mind with the idea of letting themselves go, relaxing and giving it a try. But before we ask for volunteers, I need to know which of you in this room here tonight have got the best powers of intelligence, imagination and concentration. So in a few moments' time, we're going to do an experiment involving each and every one of you. Those of you that take this seriously, those of you that concentrate and use your powers of mind effectively, very well could become one of the stars of this evening's show. Creating a sense of competition almost. Psychology there. However, there's one final thing I need to tell you, and that is there's a couple of types of people that cannot be hypnotised. The first group of people is idiots, because frankly they don't understand what the hell I'm going on about when I'm giving them instructions. And we've got any idiots in tonight? And invariably, if you point the microphone at the audience at that point, they'll all go, especially the pissed up blokes, yeah man, I'm an idiot. And also we can't hypnotise drunk people because they already think they're hypnotised. Have we got any drunk people in tonight? And you point the mic to it, invariably, it's the same people again, they'll go, eh. Because what you're doing is you're getting them to interact. Okay? And by getting them, they're now reacting, you're giving them a non-verbal instruction effectively by pointing the mic. You've asked them a question, not difficult, they're going to answer it, it's relaxing them. And it's getting them used to the idea that they can be vocal in front of, it might be the first time they've been putting themselves in a position where they're going to be in front of a group of people. Some of those things were for health and safety purposes. Some of it, and yes, there was swearing in that, I apologise. I don't swear as much as I do on stage when I'm not on stage. But that's only because I market myself as the mucky bastard bad boy of hypnosis. There is absolutely no need to swear whatsoever. The psychology remains the same without the swearing. We've created a situation where if they come up and volunteer and they don't do what we tell them to do, they're going to look daft. We've also put it into their heads, we're going to test them almost. We haven't said that, look, test is a negative thing. People have bad connection sometimes with exams at school or, you know, work assessment, yearly appraisal and all that. So that's negative. But we are creating an environment where you could be one of the stars of tonight. There's only this many chairs, look, there's tons of you. Let's see which of you have got the best powers of intelligence, imagination and concentration. Now, I must, under duty of care law, say this to you, and I did say the transparency template that's in the download stuff that you've got covers all the health and safety and laws, so if you were going to do shows, look at that first. You should always operate by all laws so that you're legal. You should have the correct insurance, you should look at safety, all that should really be a given, but it is in there. But I will say right now, in England, according to the 1952 Hypnotism Act, the 1989 government guidelines and the 1996 Home Office Model Condition as annexed document 286, you're not supposed to do any form of group suggestibility test on the entire audience. You're only supposed to do things on people who volunteered and come forward to the stage. Okay, I have to tell you that because that is what the law says. The fact that on the transparency template I tell you how to completely circumnavigate all hypnosis laws so that you're using loopholes, which means you're operating within the law. You'll get people tell you, I always get slagged off, especially by members of FESH. No offence directly intended, but lots of FESH members slag me off and go, that bastard blatantly breaks the 1952 Hypnotism Act. No, I don't. I use loopholes in the law, which means I am legally operating within the legal wording of the 1952 Hypnotism Act. Because of the way I advertise my shows and do them, it means I can do full-body catalepsy, which is apparently banned. I can do all the routines that are apparently banned. Because I'm not applying for a licence to perform off the local authority, which you should do. Trust me, you'll get far less grief off of the stage hypnotist if you were to go down that route, if you go and get licences. I've had the grand total of 6 licenses. I've only, six. About 6 I've applied for since 1989. I just blatantly advertised the fact my show posters a lot of them actually at the top says, there's no such thing as, and the psychology in this, it says there's no such thing as a, and then bigger letters, comedy hypnotist. Now, people can perceive that as, you know, hey, there was nothing like that night we went to that club, or there's nothing like a right good laugh, is there? But in truth, I blatantly said there's no such thing as a comedy hypnotist. I'm blatantly telling them hypnosis doesn't fucking exist, and I'm not going to hypnotise anyone because it's bollocks. I'm actually advertising that fact in law. So therefore, how can I be governed by the 1952 Hypnotism Act? However, to cover myself even further, the bottom of all my posts, as you'll see, it says, volunteers who must be aged 18 or over participate of their own free will and entirely at their own risk during this demonstration of hypnotic style phenomena presented strictly for scientific and research purposes only. Don't read all the wording and stuff and you download stuff. We said hypnotic style phenomena. In other words, it looks like, and it's the style of, it looks like, but it's blatantly telling them it's bollocks. But also Section 5 of the 1952 Hypnotism Act says nothing in this Act shall prevent the demonstration of hypnosis other than that or in connection with an entertainment for the treatment of mental, the exact wording, mental disease or whatever, or for scientific or research purposes only. If you ask all the volunteers certain questions at the end of the show and you video every show, which you should do anyway because it will cover yourself. If you're doing group therapy sessions, I also advocate you video them. I also advocate everyone that I teach that they video every therapy session they do. And these days you can record in MP4 format, which can then be compressed into a zip file, and you can, on a hard drive that's barely bigger than a cigarette pack, you can fit like 1 terabyte, which in realism is, you could fit, if you did a 24 hours a day therapy session, you could probably fit 6 months worth onto one of these hard drives. So it's not like it's going to take up loads of room in your office or anything. Obviously you will get them to sign that they're giving their consent to be filmed, that they're aware they're being filmed, and that they are keeping that for insurance purposes only. You get all this signed, especially with the new GDPR rules that are coming in about storing people's data. If they've expressly signed permission, consented to it, then you're covering yourself. But I advocate that because from a male point of view, especially, if you've got a female client, if it's videoed, and by videoing it I mean, you know the client showing up at 10 AM say, 5 to 10, you set it recording. So it's recording from the moment they walk through your consulting room door until a couple of minutes after. Because if ever, God forbid, somebody made a spurious allegation and said you touched them up or messed their head up or whatever, you could provide that footage and a court forensic person will be able to confirm there was no editing, but that was a continuous start to finish video feed. And therefore it would show that you had not interfered with them, if that was the allegation, or it would show exactly what you'd said, so that then you could prove that you hadn't said anything that could have caused the psychological problem that the person falsely claims. So I think it's good practice to cover yourself legally, to film everything. But from a stage show point of view, I was going down the route somewhere over there, you film it, you've got a product you can sell the people who are up on stage especially, you know, DVDs of it, can be a nice extra income, but also, if ever anyone was to try and take you to court and say you'd fuck with the head, you've got the video footage of the show, which proves that you didn't do anything. And if anyone tried to, after the event, can it ever happen? Well, they can give you grief before, but if they were going to take you to court, they have to take you to court after the event. If they were to try and say, oh, the show operated illegally because you didn't get a licence, you can pull out the video and go, please prove to me exactly on here where I've done something that means I should have applied for a licence. And they've got a problem, because to do that, they'd have to prove conclusively in a court of law that hypnosis exists. And they can't. And they never will be able to, because it's all bollocks. And the other bright side is that for group therapy sessions, you will find some council districts in England will try and tell you you need a local authority performance of hypnotism licence to do a group hypnotherapy session. Just refer them to section 5, it's bollocks, the council officers don't know what they're talking about. Tony, before we have a morning break, I'm just going to pick on you.
Oh, cheers, mate.
Just in the back, and that way you've got to walk further. Give me a round of peer group pressure.
Yeah, cheers, mate.
That's what it is, peer group pressure. You know, you get people up, you don't really give a shit about them, do you? Let's be honest. Yeah. Well, you go on, bro, give them a round of applause, make them feel good, praise them inside, make them feel good. It's all about that, whether it's for therapy or stage. Tony, we've not set anything up, have we?
No.
I would say we've not met before, but we have. As all of us did out there. But just walk forward, Tony, a little bit. That's brilliant. Just about there. That's excellent. What I'd like you to do, just put your right foot out. Yeah, that's the one. Just about though. A little bit more. Excellent. Look down at your foot there. Excellent. I'm going to count from 3 to 1. On the count of 1, if you concentrate, as I'm sure you will, which means using your powers of intelligence, imagination and concentration effectively, which means staring directly at your foot there and not taking your eyes off your foot, you're going to realise that on the count of 1, when and only when I ask you to try and lift your foot up, that it will become impossible. It'll be almost as if your foot is locked, glued, welded, cemented, bolted to the floor, making it impossible to lift your foot up as you use your powers of mind effectively. So on 3, imagining now it's almost as if someone's taken the world's strongest super glue and they're locking, gluing, welding, cementing, bolting that foot firmly to the floor. As on 2, imagining in your mind's eye, using your powers of intelligence, imagination and concentration effectively. Imagining now it's almost as if someone's got the world's strongest electromagnet and unbeknownst to you they've put metal on the bottom of your shoe and they've switched the magnet on so that it's pulling your foot down more and more firmly, more rapidly and more permanently to the floor as you use your powers of mind so effectively. And on 1, Tony, as you keep believing in the world's strongest superglue, as you keep believing in that electromagnet, as you keep believing in all those things using your powers of mind so effectively, I want you just to prove to yourself that you've done this right and just try to lift your foot up. And the more you try, the more it'll stick. Just try, prove to yourself, the more you try, the more it sticks. The more you try, the more it sticks. It's really daft, and as you laugh, it makes you feel fantastic to know that you've done this right. You know the interesting thing is, Tony, okay, your foot remains stuck there, locked fast tight, as you keep using your powers of mind. Well, let's take this hand here, I'm just going to place this hand on your head like that, and as I do, in a moment I'm going to tap that foot. When I tap that foot, you're going to be able to lift your foot up. Look at your foot, you're going to be able to lift it up when I tap it. But the very moment, the very second I tap that foot, and you're able to lift it up, that very second, that electromagnet's there on your head, and your hand will be stuck fast tight to your head. See what I mean? Lift your foot up, lift it up. Now just notice how that's stuck fast tight. Just seriously, the more you try, the more it sticks. Just try, prove to yourself you've done it right. The more you try, the more it sticks. The more you try, the more it sticks. It's proved it. I know it's ridiculous, isn't it? It's stuck fast, tighter and tighter. It doesn't matter. You can move it around your head, but it just won't come off. It's really, really weird. And here's the thing, Tony. In a moment, I'm going to let go of your hand. When I do, you're going to be able to remove your hand from your head. But you realise that your name, Tony, is... It's gone like that. It's almost like it's at the tip of your tongue, but you just can't quite say it. It's not... And the same powers of mind that lock your foot to the floor, lock your hand to your head, you'll just find the moment your hand is released, you can no longer say your name until I tap you on the chin, but until then it's like it's on the tip of your tongue. It's really strange. It's nice. What was your name again? Just, you know what? It's. What's your name?
Tony.
Yeah, exactly. Fantastic. Yeah. No, I know it's really, really strange. You know the weird thing is, you know this finger here, this one. That particular finger there. You know how your foot was stuck to the floor, your hand went like that, your chin went like that. You know this finger here? On the count of 3, it becomes the most pleasurable part of your body, and the more you rub it, or anyone else rubs it, the more you'll enjoy it. 1, 2, 3. Have a go at yourself. I know, it's bizarre, isn't it? It's really, really... I tell you what, you've been a wonderful sport. Just walk this way. No, come this way. Wonderful thing is to put your feet together, Tony. Hands by your side, tilt your head well back, take a nice deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. I'm going to count from 3 to 1. On the count of 1, if you concentrate and use those same powers of intelligence, imagination and concentration effectively, as you just did a few moments ago, you'll feel yourself falling gently backwards into my arms. I won't let you fall and hurt yourself. You'll just gently be lowered to the floor into a lovely, relaxing, sleep-like state, keeping your eyes tightly closed at all times unless I say otherwise. So on 3, the deeper you go, the better you feel. And the better you feel, the deeper you go with every breath that you take, every noise that you hear, every word that I say, and every thought that you think. 2, you can feel yourself falling gently backwards into my arms. Don't let you fall and hurt yourself. But 1, oh, you stop yourself, you shoot yourself then, didn't you? Don't worry. Sometimes happens, we would segue into a different way of hypnotising if you were shit scared like that. But it doesn't matter, because, oh, by the way, your finger's back to normal now. Just check. It's all right again now. Yeah? You can say your name, can't you?
Yep.
Brilliant. Give me a round of applause as you go back. Now, if it was a show, I'd just sit him in a chair at that point. I'd go, I'll come back to you in a minute. Go to somebody else who hopefully wouldn't shit themselves when we did the back. And then I would hypnotise the people who either shit themselves or were too old. Because, you know, if you get people that are like clearly in the 60s or look frail, you're not going to be dropping them on the floor. A, for safety reasons, and B, it just looks like you don't give a shit then. So you look like you're paying them attention and put them in a chair. The reason for that demonstration before the morning break is there wasn't really, well, there was no hypnotic induction process. Used at being, he came up, his foot ends up locked to the floor, then his hand's locked to his head, then he can't say his name, then he's having the old orgasm finger. There was no formal hypnotic induction process. Now we need to prove a point, and that, incidentally, works 99.9% of the time with people. Now, generally speaking, I reserve that for what I call those, for fuck's sake, why didn't I get a proper job nights? Which, what that means is, it's the nights when you get there and they've not put the posters up at the venue. Nobody knows there's going to be a stage hypnotist on. About 6 people have shown up because they thought it was a Barry White tribute instead. You go on and they're not the least bit interested, and you get next to no volunteers, and you go through your induction process, and at the end of it they open their eyes and go, can I go home yet? And you just know it's not fucking working. It's going to be one of those nights, it's going to be shite. Now, there was a time years ago, prior to my daughter being born, where, quite frankly, it would have been a case of, well, I'm getting paid anyway, the contract says I get paid whatever, it's all their fault, tough shit. Pack up, go home, take the money. Since my daughter's been born, and expenses have got bigger in life, what with all our after school clubs and classes and all this, that, the other, I reconsidered things a bit, because if you do end up taking the money off the venue, obliging them to the contract, and they've not had a show, it does tend to leave a nasty taste in their mouth, even though it was their fucking fault for not advertising it right. And it does mean they'll tend to talk, and it can have a knock-on effect of not getting rebooked at that venue, but not by anyone they know either. So as, shall we say, an assured income being a bit more, becoming suddenly more important 8 and a bit years ago, I thought there's got to be a way of doing a show even when it's a shit night. And Delavar had taught me, crikey, back in about 1991, this body magic trick, which is ultimately that if you get somebody to stand, I'll do it sideways so you can see, and then the body weight's, arguably if you get them to have the feet apart, it's kind of roughly balanced between both feet. If you then get them to put this foot forward, ideally so that from a natural kind of standing position, the body's kind of naturally leaning forward a bit, that sort of distance. The body weight now, they've got a choice. If they're leaning back, it's going to go on this back leg. But as you saw, I stood like this for Tony, so my hand was on his right shoulder. So I was effectively patting this shoulder to ensure that his body weight goes over this leg. And as long as the body weight remains on that leg, it is impossible physically to lift the bloody leg up. It's got nothing to do with all this shite I'm saying. I'm just creating the illusion that I must have hypnotised him. The fact is, if they're in that physical position, they can't lift the leg up. And to the audience, it looks like, wow, in seconds the person's got the leg stuck. To the person up here who doesn't know it's a body magic trick, they're thinking, I can't lift my leg up. It's not a normal position to be in normal everyday life. The chances of them knowing this are very minuscule. And I've got my hand there, so if he did try and stand up straight, I could just apply more pressure to stop him getting into a position. Because if he gets to about here, then he'll be able to lift it up. But as long as I keep him about here, he's not going to be able to do, as long as his leg, excuse my ridiculous socks, but as long as his knee's got to be, the leg's got to be straight. Yeah, and if you go forward bent, then it could come up. So straight leg at the angle, you can apply the pressure so they cannot lift the leg up. once you see, and you'll see it on their face, that realisation of, I can't lift my fucking leg up. Now some people will actually verbally go, what the hell's going on? But it doesn't matter, you can see it in their eyes. This doesn't take rehearsal or practice, just keep an eye on them. Look at them and you'll see this moment where they go, like, what the flipping hell's going on here? I can't lift. That moment, arguably, their conscious mind is so preoccupied with the idea of what the bloody hell's going on, my foot's locked to the floor, that arguably, if you were to then give them a suggestion, a command, call it what you will, an instruction, that they're consciously occupied, because it's creating an element of confusion and disorientation inside their mind, this will help bypass the critical faculty, or the analytical area of the brain, and arguably, therefore, what you say next will go directly to the unconscious mind, and if you believe that that's what hypnosis is, then arguably you've just hypnotised them in a manner where their eyes remain open at all times, but in a manner where they can't, there's no resistance because they didn't know what was happening. Which means arguably you've hypnotised them against their will and just broken the 1952 hypnotism act. But as hypnosis doesn't exist, it doesn't fucking matter. But you've tricked them into a state of mind of thinking that when you say stuff, it happens. To amplify this further, and to mean that the next stage of stuff, i.e. the hand stuck to the head, they're not saying the name, orgasm finger things, and that little running order of foot, head, can't say name, or can't say numbers, counting numbers, or finger rubbing, in that little structure, there's nothing new about the routine separately, but that little structure, in fairness, credit goes to professional opportunist James Brown, who in his Penguin Magic Live lecture did them in that particular order. So credit where it's due. But to put them into a bind, I want, and I also, so the audience perceive it that I've hypnotised them, I'm saying I'm going to count from 3 to 1. Imagine there's the world's strongest super glue. Imagine the electromagnets. What, you know, you might even say, imagine it doesn't hurt you, but imagine someone's hammered a nail through your foot. Whatever cobblers. The more ridiculous the better, because arguably, if you want to buy into this, the more ridiculous an image is, the more likely the unconscious mind is to grab hold of it and accept it as a suggestion or command. I believe that's twaddle in this context for reasons I've already said. But you know what? If I'm wrong, and there is such a thing as hypnosis, and it's what people say it is, then it won't hurt to have done these things. Let's chuck everything at it, belts and braces. And we've also told them exactly when it's going to happen. So I'm going to count from 3 to 1. On the count of 1, it's going to be almost as if, and I always say almost as if, not it's definitely, because then whatever they feel, or imagine in their heads they think they're feeling, they can't go, well, I can't lift my leg, but there must be a logical solution, because it doesn't feel like my leg's, you know, stuck there with glue. Whatever they feel in their heads, remember you said it's almost as if, so whatever they feel must be right, if that makes sense. It will always feel right, because you didn't clarify exactly. You left it for them to fill in the blanks. So again, they think, oh, it's happened, it's real. And I already at the beginning said, use your powers of intelligence, imagination and concentration. So if it hadn't worked, it wouldn't have been my fault. If he'd have lifted his leg up, I'd have gone, Christ almighty, Tony. I bet you have to have somebody out, you get dressed in the morning, don't you? Look, the point is you're supposed to put your foot, and it goes, because he didn't use his powers of intelligence, imagination and concentration. So we've set that element up. We've also set up this element that on the count of 1 and only on the count of 1, then and only then, I want you to try to lift up your foot. This is Emile Coué's law of reversed effort. What resists persists. The word try itself implies that it will not be possible, or it will be more difficult to do it, because you've said try. Yoda. Do or do not. There is no try. It's a crap impression, I know. But it's the Yoda thing. Try implies they won't be able to do it. So when they can't do it, but you now know that's because of the physical position they're in, they attach what they experience as reality to the words you've said. So they come to believe it's happened because of what you said. And once they believe that you say things and it becomes their genuine reality, the moment they believe that, unquestionably, arguably, they are hypnotised. Because now there's no resistance, there's no questioning if he or she says something, will it happen? Because we've had tangible physical proof they couldn't lift a bloody leg. We also very cleverly at the beginning say to them, yeah, on the count of one, you're just going to try to lift your foot. And I want you to just prove to yourself that you've done it correctly. Just prove to yourself you've done it correctly. If he then lifted up his foot, the entire audience would perceive it as he'd done it wrong. Because I've already set myself up so that it's never my fault by that phrase, prove to yourself you've done it correctly. And people want to feel good. So they're going to prove to themselves they've done it correctly. Well, they haven't got much choice if you've got them in the physical right position at this point. But then when they've moved a bit, and that's why you've got your hand on the shoulder, you kind of gently push on it again, as much to say, stay like that. And I verbally, as you heard me, said, your foot remains stuck to the floor. I then am confident enough to walk away. And at this point, it's literally, they call it ratcheting. It's going from one thing to the other. Because they believe the foot's there, I tell them that in a moment when I tap you on the foot, you'll be able to lift it up, but your hand's stuck here on your head then. Well, of course he's going to be able to lift up his foot because I'm up here and I therefore have his hand on his head, which means I'm naturally pushing it down on his head, which naturally pulls the body slightly back upwards, which means he's no longer fully leaning forward with the weight on there. So of course he's going to be able to lift up his foot. But in that moment of, oh yeah, I can lift up my foot. What there? That's disorientation and confusion again. And also, I quickly re-emphasise, yes, that's fantastic. Just prove to yourself you've done it right. You notice your hand's stuck, and I'm actually pushing it down a bit, as much to non-verbally say, keep it there, you silly cunt. No, but non-verbally, what you're saying is keep it there, and then you take your hand away, and now you've re-emphasised it. Prove to yourself you've done it right. So that's the second time. Then we release it, and we told them what to do and when to do it. In a moment when we release your hand, suddenly you won't be able to say your name. It's almost as if it's on the tip of your tongue. So we've told them how to react. So it's no major surprise when the hand's removed. What's your name? And they go, because they're just mimicking what you've told them to do. But now you could go from there, as we did, I tap you on the chin, you'll be able to say your name, but this finger becomes pleasurable. Beautiful thing here is, even if they weren't hypnotised, even if they didn't think that any of this was real, although invariably I find that by the end of a little thing like this, you can do an induction on them, and they'll go, because arguably they are hypnotised with their eyes open. But you can get the conventional eye closure thing at the end, even with resistant sceptical swines. But the foot's got to work because it's a physical thing. The other stuff's not so sure, but you can always segue. If they do take the hand off their head, you go, oh, you need to concentrate more, let's try one more thing. And then you go into the daft finger thing, but here's the thing. I say to them, when you rub your finger, or anyone else rubs it, it's going to be like the most pleasurable thing ever. You don't even need to say orgasm. The suggestion's there. The most pleasurable thing ever. And then I start rubbing their finger a bit. The person, trust me, will laugh. How often does a complete stranger rub your little finger like that? I kid you not, put your little finger out. I mean, we're not complete strangers, but it's a bit odd, isn't it? Yeah. You're ultimately going to feel a bit uncomfortable, a bit nervous. This is a bit strange. You're going to end up laughing. But the audience perceive that as enjoying it. So whatever happens, whether they're hypnotised or not, is irrelevant. To anyone watching, it's perceived that they have. Does that make sense? Yeah? Right, we'll be moving on to actually inductions, although, ironically, everything we said's relevant because it's the psychology. Arguably, you have just seen an induction, it's just that their eyes remained open at all times. If we take the concept that an induction process is fixating their conscious attention on one thing, so they're fully focused on that to the exclusion of everything else, so it narrows their attention, so that while they're occupied there, we then bring in some disorientation and confusion to, if you like, distract the nightclub bounce to the critical faculty, the analytical area of the brain, so it goes off for a brew break. Then what we say goes into the unconscious mind, and if it's got really ridiculous images connected to it, it's more likely to be acted upon. Hence the ridiculous idea of your foot being super glued to the floor or nailed in place. It's just ridiculous. So it's more likely, arguably, to take form. Does that make sense? And setting everything up so you can never fail. Because it's them. If it doesn't work, they've proven to themselves they've done it wrong. And they're proving it to the whole audience as well. And they've also demonstrated they've got no intelligence, imagination and concentration. And when you realise all that and stop worrying about whether you're going to get them under or not, and the same psychology applies for group therapy sessions or one-to-one, when you stop worrying and that fear's out the window because you know you can never fail or you can never be perceived to have failed, so you can stop beating yourself up and worrying about it, that'll automatically give you more confidence, and that becomes the wonderful positive vicious circle of having more confidence is transmitted to the client or the audience, which means they're more likely to be compliant because they feel they're in the hands of a professional who's done it tons of times, even if it's only your first show. Yeah? Makes sense? Excellent. 5-10 minute break, get yourself a brew, go to the toilets, whatever you need to do, and then we'll be back in.